Welcome to another episode of Jay Leno's Garage, or I guess we can be Jay Leno's Green Garage today because we're talking about electric vehicles. If you've been on this website before, you've seen my 1909 Baker electric car. And let's imagine this car was still in production. Let's say Baker had been going 100 years or so. What would they be building now? They might be building something like this. This thing is pretty wild. The inventor, Rick, come on in here.
Okay.
Rick, how you doing?
Hi, great.
Tell us about your vehicle.
Well, I was stuck in traffic in about 1981 or 2, and I noticed that there was one person in every car that was jamming up the freeway, and I said, what we need is narrow cars. First thought was they'd tip over. The next thought was, well, what if we ballasted it like a sailboat?
Right.
So anyway, I thought someday the companies would build them, and they never did. So my son and I started building a project, and the more we got into it, the better it worked. We went out and actually beat Corvettes with a skinny little car that looked like it should tip over.
Now, when you say beat Corvettes, what are you talking
On
about?
an autocross course, just
okay.
going around an autocross.
All right. Okay.
So it corners pretty well. It's got 2,000 pounds under the floor for ballast, so it has the same static rollover threshold as a 911 Porsche. Of course, you put a couple of heavy people in there and
Right.
you start changing.
And what do you
it.
call it?
It's called the Tango.
The Tango, okay. And what do you use for a motor?
It has 2 electric motors. Each
Okay.
one has more torque than a Viper V10. It's got 1,000 foot-pounds of torque starting at 0 RPM, so it
Okay.
goes from 0 to 135 in one gear.
Wow. Rear-wheel drive?
Rear-wheel drive,
Okay,
right.
rear-wheel
One
drive.
motor for each wheel. There wasn't any room for a transmission differential. We had to just go direct drive.
Well, nobody really does electric with a transmission, do they?
You don't need it.
Yeah, you don't really need it. It's just more complexity. I remember I
Yeah.
drove one of the early Teslas, and that had a 2-speed in it,
Right.
but it wasn't very reliable, so they went to the single gear. It's kind of like a motorcycle. The passenger sits behind you. The switch gear all looks modern and up to date. Is this off a production vehicle?
Yeah, this is a Cadillac CTS steering column, and then we used
Okay.
Momo and Sparco. We had the special seats designed. We had the bolster lowered so it would be easier to get in and out of.
Right,
The
right.
reason we needed this was so you have room for the knees of the rear person. We've actually had a 7-foot person in the back seat.
Okay, now you use lead-acid batteries, but you're going to lithium-ion?
Yeah, it's just a matter of development. You know, we haven't had
Okay.
the budget to really develop a good lithium-ion pack until now, but now we've got the batteries have arrived, and we'll be putting them in within weeks.
And what is the realistic range of battery? You know, I find electricity is like sex. People have no compulsion about lying about it.
Oh, right.
You know, I've got some electric vehicles, and they always promise 100, but you really only get maybe 28 or 30. It depends on how you drive it, isn't it?
It does, but if you go at a constant speed down the freeway, you'll get 40 miles realistic. I mean, I've done it over and over again with these lead-acid batteries, but that's with about 10 kilowatt hours. So if you put 50 kilowatt hours, that's 200 miles of range, and you can do that with lithium-ion.
The thing I find really cool about this is the only electric vehicle I've ever seen that can do a burnout. Why don't more electric vehicles have more high performance?
I don't know. It's not that expensive to do. I mean, the actual controller that's 2,000 amps, it's $5,000. That's not really a lot of money compared to an engine in a high-performance
Now,
car.
do you charge this at 240 or 110 or
Either one or anything in between.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So how
could
long?
set the amps
How long
up.
at 110?
Probably about 6-8 hours for
Okay.
a lead-acid pack with 110, whereas with 240, it's pretty much 6 times faster because you can put 40 amps, which is about 3 times the amperage, plus double the voltage. So it's about 6 times faster, about an hour and a half.
Okay, so
pretty
that's
full.
not bad.
Yeah.
That's not bad at all. And what is your website if people want to find out about this?
Commutercars.com.
You're producing these now, correct?
Yeah, this is the 11th one so far. They're all sold.
I'm almost wider than this vehicle. How many cars can you do that? Look how thin it is. And the cool thing is you can, like you say, you can split lanes on the freeway with it. Is that legal, lane splitting?
Well, as of day before yesterday, 63 police officers have told me it's legal. It's unanimous so far. So that was two.
So if you can fit in the space, you're
Yeah.
okay. What do we have here?
That
looks like a wheelie bar. What is that?
It's actually a bumper so you don't hit the shocks against the curb when you park perpendicular to the curb.
Well, can we open it up?
Yeah, sure.
Let's see
this
what
is
there is
just
to see.
there's not a lot of room back here with the back seat. It's kind of an either or.
So this is for, what is this, 440? What is
This
that
is
for?
just for a 240. This is like a welder plug, and then
Right.
if you want to charge it from a hotel room, I've got the 220 20
Oh,
amp,
okay.
and you've got all these different connectors, so you can plug it into just about anything. And
Okay.
if you don't have the connector, you can buy it at the hardware store for $15.
Well, very cool. Let's take it for a ride and see what it does. The funny thing is, it doesn't feel like a small car inside. It feels like you got plenty of room. It's only when you look at it from the outside it looks weird. And it makes you smile. That's the key. With no internal combustion engine, there's no engine heat, there's no noise. All you hear is the tires and, you know, the wind going by. And it goes like stink. and the passengers behind you. So if you have one of those passengers that's talking all the time, oh, they're back there. It's not your problem. You know, in the early days of the 20th century, it was pretty much a toss-up between steam, gas, and electric, and they didn't know which way they would go. And for a while, it looks like electric had the slight edge. But of course, gasoline became so cheap, and gasoline technology moved much, much faster. The only thing that's ever held the electric car back, really, is the battery technology. And that's still the case today, although some of these new lithium-ion batteries are very, very promising. So if you can get 200 miles out of this with lithium-ion, that could be the thing that finally does it. And, of course, it's fast. You think it might be top-heavy, but it's not. All the weight is down low. Your center of gravity is very low. You know, I enjoy any unique driving experience, and this is unique. There's nothing quite like it. It's really no wider than a motorcycle, and the fact you can lane split in it, I find hilarious. You know, you're on the freeway, you just get between two cars, and you go. It actually tracks very nicely. How many cars can you hang your arms out both windows? And really, there's not much that can keep up with you. Well, let's see. Is an electric car faster than, say, a 426 Hemi Cuda? Let's take a look. Go ahead. It's fast.